It shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but existing in the modern era requires money. Therefore, any project that requires a significant amount of time requires an equally significant amount of funding. Usually, products require the money first to, make the thing, and then once you sell the thing you made, you can profit. Because of the nature of this cycle, pretty much everybody that doesn't already have enormous savings must find investors. And nobody likes the capital I, investors. Enter tabletop role-playing games. These products are almost entirely written text, so the physical medium of books seems like a natural fit. After all, a lot of people will be playing at a table to play tabletop, so a physical book to hand to your friend during play seems fine. Or is it? In this video, I'm going to talk about a broad range of topics related to money and the incentive structures created by our current gaming landscape, with a focus on big tabletop games like D&D 5e. Part 1. Books and Bonobos. As stated previously, most TTRPG companies don't really sell games. They sell books. Books filled with all kinds of things. Some games, like the Hasbro Wizards D&D, only sell a handful of books, and let the community do the rest of the work. Other systems, like Pathfinder 1st Edition, will sell tons of books. Bestiary books filled with all kinds of wondrous creatures like the chimpanzee? Just a regular old chimp? I guess there could be some scenarios where it gets used, but this is such a nothing bestiary entry. Here we go, a hedgehog. Who is ever going to fight this? This is what I'm fighting in my heroic fantasy game? I get level 1 characters are weak. Go check out my video on that. But goddamn! Imagine you buy a book called Beasts of the Wild, and half the book is just a bunch of garbage like this. Some creatures are unworthy of having their stats codified in a bestiary. Plain and simple. Once you get the Monty Python bunny in here, you can keep your cute critters. But this is just unacceptable. There's this concept in card games where they will purposefully make a bunch of garbage cards just to fill your packs. Pack filler. This is pack filler. The only purpose the chimp and the hedgehog serve is to pad the numbers, meet some quota, make some more pages, and most importantly, print more books. This isn't something that can aid your games. It is now a capital P product. You can see examples of this all throughout Pathfinder. Garbage subclasses that basically serve no purpose, like Pack Mule. Feats that actively don't do anything, like Monkey Lunge. Blatantly overpowered races that should have never gotten through playtesting, like Gargoyle. Pathfinder is the king of garbage. It is so bloated that a new player will be completely and utterly buried in content, all split across hundreds of books. This incentive structure is obviously misaligned with the consumer. They want books filled with cool monsters, unique races, and feats that add complexity to the game. Instead, they receive basic animals, overpowered or nonsense races, and feats that don't do anything, or worse, actively harm the gameplay experience. But if more people buy your books thanks to it, then who knows? Maybe we'll get the entire ape faction of bonobos, orangutans, gibbons, and more to clog our stores. Part 2. Etched into Stone. On the complete opposite end of the sale structure, we have D&D 5e. As far as systems go, D&D has less than a dozen expansions, giving more classes, feats, monsters, spells, etc. Things like Volo's Guide to Monsters, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and the Dungeon Master's Guide might not have 100% amazing content, but what they put in these books is certainly better than the slop that gets churned out constantly with Pathfinder books. I like the idea, and I think that in general, it is a lot more fair to the consumer. License/official printed content should have a pretty high floor to the quality. However, the books have a completely different issue. You can't change them. Once you've sold a book that has a typo to 10,000 people, that's it. Now everybody will get to enjoy page 25, where instead of an orc, it is written pork, because someone was hungry while typing it out. This also means the rules are frozen in time, only being able to be iterated on or reinterpreted. This makes it so long-standing problems with the system can't be fixed, because everything else that is designed works with those flaws in mind. So now, in order to quote-unquote fix the game, you have to dig through an entire mountain of content, destroying everything else in the process. You render the purchases of those 10,000 people completely irrelevant, because now everything in that book they bought is outdated. So now, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Either you never change the book, sticking to your guns with this system that cannot be altered forever, or you print new books and hope that everyone just goes along with it, abandoning their old books for these shiny new ones with updated rules. This is what Hasbro Wizards is currently doing at the time of making this video with their new D&D 5.5. I don't care what they call it, that's what it is. Scrap all the old rules, here's a small update without changing much about the core system. Buy $200 of books. It's up in the air whether or not this will turn out well, but Hasbro Wizards has been going down the shitter for a while now, something that was made glaringly obvious by the OGL scandal. If a tabletop role-playing game giant like Hasbro Wizards has a hard time doing this, imagine if the name of your product isn't synonymous with the hobby itself. Part 3. The Quadruple A Games Industry. If you stop thinking about TTRPG creators as bookstores, and instead as games, then you get a completely different landscape with its own host of problems in video games. If you aren't familiar, then I recommend either subscribing to the Jimquisition for the latest and greatest in game industry fuckery. You can also watch this video by Josh Strife Hayes to get a good idea of how bad things have gotten. Link in the description. Very basically, the games industry has now turned into an unregulated nightmare that uses the thinly veiled excuse of it being for children or it's just cosmetic to pull all kinds of psychological tactics to extract money from your wallet. Battle passes, pre-order bonuses, day one DLC, limited availability cosmetics, loot boxes, the list goes on and on. A long time ago, games were made bad, killing you over and over again just to eat your quarters. Now, you can hook your credit card directly into a gacha machine to gamble money you don't have. Video game situation is crazy. If you look at other games that have existed for a long time, like League of Legends or CSGO, the strategy of selling cosmetics starts pretty innocently, but ever since Overwatch popularized gambling mechanics as part of their cosmetics system, other games saw the dollar signs and pounced onto the predatory system to make a quick buck. League of Legends and CSGO can sell skins that are hundreds of dollars. If you go on Reddit, you can see people bragging about how they won the gambling game to get the shiny new Arcane Jinx skin. Nobody seems to be making their "I spent $300 and I didn't even get the skin" posts, though. Not even a game with reasonable monetization, like old school RuneScape, can exist without RuneScape 3 just around the corner with the most aggressive and annoying monetization that you've ever seen. Despite having roughly 3 times the player count, old school RuneScape will usually only slightly exceed or match the revenue of RS3. All this to say is that the predatory monetization works. Hasbro Wizards is doing everything in its power right now in order to figure out how to apply all of the scummy video game monetization practices into their new edition of D&D. If you want the future of your tabletop games to be tainted like video games, then keep paying attention to D&D. Soon you'll be buying limited time offer skins through some cash shop, instead of commissioning an artist or trying your hand at doing some shitty sketch of whatever's in your head. Instead of being rewarded inspiration through role-playing, you'll be able to purchase inspiration using 300 gems, but you'll only be able to purchase gems in groups of 500, suspiciously always leaving you with leftover gems. I don't like the direction this hobby is heading. D&D has been a titan in the industry for a long time, and every other company will watch to see where they succeed and where they fail. If they manage to stick the landing with their generative AI-run virtual tabletop games chock full of microtransactions, I shudder to think about what the future holds for this hobby. Part 4. A living, breathing game. So, we are at an impasse. If we sell books, we might end up making similar kinds of mistakes at some point in the future. Even if we toe the line perfectly, we could end up making a mistake that is then impossible to fix because of the limitations of print media. We could introduce alternate forms of monetization in cosmetic items, but for tabletop games, it can be pretty tough to sell people on PNGs. Even if we did somehow make it work, there are clearly many issues with following in the footsteps of the modern game devs and their increasingly predatory monetization tactics. But we still need to make money. What do? Here's where the people come in. We need to fund these creative people. We need to back their crowdfunding projects and subscribe to their Patreon. If we do not give these people money to fulfill their dreams, then nobody will. This is true for people on YouTube, your favorite artists on Twitter or Blue Sky, or the people that make other kinds of things like indie games or TTRPGs. You need to decide if they are worth the investment of your time and money. This trust does not come easily, usually accumulating over several months or even years. I think that following in the footsteps of itch.io is the ideal solution. People pay what they want. What this basically amounts to is a free-to-play model with an optional subscription service. It's the best I've got. Tragic, right? I can point out all the flaws and how people are making their money all day, but I'm not powerful enough to find an alternative solution. A subscription service does come with its benefits, though. With a consistent source of funding, you can work on your projects forever! This is what I hope to do with NickNacks, at least at the start. Every Patreon subscriber gets you +1 bestiary entry, spell, or class feature. No, but seriously, tabletop role-playing games as a medium have so much potential. You do realize you can just make up monsters, right? Hear a scary story one night, and the next night you can put it in your game. What other medium allows you to do this without technical expertise? I'd argue that what I do in converting ideas into mechanics is still a talent that requires you to hone your game design skills. Looking into the future of what makes an entertaining play experience that doesn't break the game too hard. You can make potentially infinite content, but you can also patch a game's weaknesses. You probably wouldn't play League of Legends if they only updated it every 2 to 3 years. If there's some kind of glaring flaw, or if the community changes around the game can change with it. Don't like something like, I don't know, attacks of opportunity work? You go into the website, you change some text, bada bing, now your game's better. So long as everybody who plays is notified of these changes, this freedom can be an incredible boon to the development of a game long term. I honestly believe that I can stick with tabletop for the rest of my life. This hobby gives you creative freedoms that nothing else can even come close to. Until we get that full dive VR technology, then we're all screwed. I want to provide a game that is built upon honest principles rather than psychological exploitation. But this is a two-way street. If I trust you to put your money where your mouth is when you say, I only give money to good developers, you need to step away from the games you once loved. Call of Duty is different now. League of Legends is different now. D&D is different now. The people who make these games no longer have your best interests in mind. The leaders at the head of these companies only exploit the love and passion that the developers and their communities have to maximize profit. We all need to stop giving people who seek to exploit us our money, and putting the money where we truly believe it will change the world for the better. For my sake, I hope that means investing in the future of Knickknacks via Patreon. If you aren't comfortable with that, then hopefully you can at least stick along with me on the journey. Subscribe to the channel, follow socials, join Discord. You can be part of an ever-evolving tabletop game that suits the needs of those who enjoy the hobby rather than a number on a spreadsheet. If there's something we could all use right now, it's not products, it's connection and community. If money is what makes the world go round, where you put your money determines the direction the world moves.